Hello, my name is Jamey Deon Jimerson, and this is a video put out on the internet. Purposes to make me feel better about having success. Success can be categorized into a few short words, I would say. Success socially, because I guess success can be categorized by like happiness. There are some people that would say, oh, happiness is a state of mind. There's people in third world countries that are happy, but those are just other people giving a perspective of a particular lifestyle that they don't enjoy personally. And then even other quote unquote persons having an opinion. I have a story that kind of brings a new type of definition to that categorization as well. So I guess I'll start off by saying I guess this is a vlog of my description of how I reached success, and then I'll define why I think it's success. So all throughout my life, I've wanted to accumulate either a lot of resources, or in the past, I wanted to leave a legacy. I always would say that I wanted to be well known instead of famous. So I've had many business endeavors before the one occurred that I'm going to be describing in this video. And they were met with ups and downs. I kept striving. So I was in school to become a paralegal, and I met this gentleman who told me he could reveal to me the particular secrets that weren't taught, as far as the utilization of words to be effective in what a lot of people call the sovereign citizen movement, like paperwork. A lot of people in that particular movement, they could be described as trying to cash out their birth certificate, or get a lump sum of money from the IRS, or not be under, the particular regulations of government imposed on the majority of society. So after a period of time of learning from him, I took on this endeavor that I saw was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. And it was writing a federal lawsuit to get rid of some tickets, some traffic tickets, and to hold accountable a coroner's office for the mishandling of a deceased person's property on arrival at the scene of their estate after being noticed that trust paperwork was involved. There was a trust involved in the displacement of trust property, the displacement of estate basically the coroner mishandling estate property in accordance to the law. So I wrote this big lawsuit, and it ended up being like 2,000 pages. And I infused certain elements of what people call like Mason stuff or Illuminati stuff, and Jewish numbers. I like converted my driver's license picture into ACSII code, a numerical codification for me to take possession of like my picture or my signature on the, utilized in the, lawsuit. And I had received in the mail this rule book from the Supreme Court of the United States of America, and I inserted it into the paperwork as a attachment to the lawsuit. And in writing the lawsuit, I didn't want to pay for the filing fee. So I found this obscure law in regards to seamen not having to pay the filing fee, similar to those considered in former papyrus indigent. So it's called a request to proceed without the prepayment of fees as a seaman. So I packaged the lawsuit inside of a motion, and the motion was a request to the judge not to have to pay the filing fee, and inside of the motion was the lawsuit. So in essence, granting the motion would by default grant the lawsuit in my favor. So I sent it off to the Central District Court, and they administratively mishandled the lawsuit. They filed it, yet they removed 8 pages from the top of the lawsuit. And I corresponded with them post them filing what they filed, and I said, hey, what you filed is not what I sent you. There's pages missing. I have a copy. And I sent them copies. And they never admitted that they misfiled. The only thing they said was, sorry, our legal department says there's nothing else we can do for you. So I opted not to write up a motion and go into the court, because in my mind I was like, hey, that's not my filing, that's your filing, that's your forgery of my filing. And if I go to the court and appear, then I'm attaching a body to your usage of my name. And, it comes into question like, okay, what is a name? A name is the utilization of the English alphabet. The English alphabet being in possession of the British government via, sealing dictionaries, from the Oxford back in the day. There was a movie, it was called The Professor and the Madman, that touches on it. So I was like, hey, in my mind, the government, when my parents, side note, when my parents had me, when they brought me to the hospital when I was born, they chose a name from the English alphabet, and then they told the hospital the name that they wanted to attach to the body that came out of my mother's womb. And then, so the United States government took possession of that name and then assigned a social security number to that name. So the government, my argument in my mind was, the government mishandled my lawsuit, filed what they wanted to file, their version, and then utilized the name that I call my name, and quote unquote wanted me to appear on their forgery, basically volunteering to produce a body, or by me showing up to court, it would be attaching like a bodily collateral to that utilization of that counterfeit version of my lawsuit. And then I could get into conversations about philosophical or scientific questions about the amount of energy a body can output, so forth and so on. So I was like, I'm not going to appear in court on that fictitious filing of my version. And so I embarked on this campaign to get other people who did business with the court to persuade the court to change their filing, of which to date they have not changed that filing. And one thing that I did before I sent in my version, I utilized the Postal Service, and I utilized this form book, a firm mailing book. And the firm mailing book is a book that you can use to generate receipts that the United States Postal Service will back. Because the United States Postal Service, because of Nixon and what happened with the strike and the United States Post Office, and I won't go into the big details, but the Postal Service is an independent company, not owned by the United States government. Well, the post office is, but the United States Postal Service was enacted because of something that President Nixon enacted because of the postal strike. But before he enacted the Postal Service, he had the United States military working at the post office. So I didn't really see a law that stated that the military was ordered to leave working at the Postal Service after it became the Postal Service from the post office. But basically what I'm saying is the post office has its own money. And there's a law that states that the postmaster sits at the seat of the postmaster is at the seat of government. The seat of government is at Capitol, the United States Capitol. And the United States Capitol is where the Senate and the House of Representatives meet. So, I'm not going to get into what Trump did and, what they call nudging a raid on the Capitol. And, we won't get into, the Capitol not having an insurance policy. So basically the seat of government got invaded by persons having social security numbers and driver's licenses, which allows the federal government to tap into social security and bring claims against the value at the seat of government. And this, there was a lot of turn of events that happened after I filed my lawsuit that was very coincidental, that people that play around with these things that are called numbers and different things that us humans think we do independently, but no human does anything independently, because every human is a byproduct of the earth. And the thing that we call the earth, this round thing that we live on, is always commencing scientific experiments to find out more about what it exists within. And humans are just one species out of billions and trillions of species that conduct experiments on a daily basis. So humans, don't do anything independently and have no independent product. And humans, schools and everything like that teach each other of a fictitious independence, but only a small portion of people that do drugs or have a particular experience that I'm going to talk about later are with the knowledge after living through the experience that the earth is a sentient being, just like humans propose and tell themselves that they are. And I think that I'm a particular type of sentient being of the earth. So going back to the Fern book mailing, so what I did was I gave my paperwork a particular value, as if a artist giving a painting a value, but that still doesn't make it available to be bought and sold in the public. It has to be registered with a third-party registering agency that has funds, and an agency that will attach funds to a receipt. So anyways, I gave the paperwork that I sent in a value, and I presented the book, the Fern mailing book, which has a section called consumable good. Now when that section is utilized, it makes the item sent available to be purchased, and if destroyed, it gives that item a value which can be claimed as a loss for a civil lawsuit on a government form 95, SF 95, for a claim for injury, damage, or death. And so presenting the Fern mailing book receipts with evidence that there was damage, the United States Postal Service can attach value backing up a claim if it is true that damage did occur. So basically, that's what I did to the lawsuit. I attached a value of $400,005,125.50 to my paperwork, and by happenstance, it was destroyed. Now, when I sent in my paperwork, I presented copies of the value on the mailing in a package slip and inside of the box, so the United States Central District Court, federal court, knew of the value. And basically, when they destroyed the paperwork, my argument was that they essentially destroyed the rules to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Now, there's three branches of government. There's the judicial, the legislative, and the executive. So through the judicial branch, that governs all of the federal courts, and then that imposes itself upon the states. And then the states, they say, oh, well, we have, sovereign immunity, but no state has a printing press. So, and then sovereign immunity of the states have been dwindled away by taking out government loans and accepting government aid. So, only thing that states have, quote unquote, maybe it's like water rights or land rights, but the federal government has essentially indebted all the states to where they basically don't have anything. And then there's not too many states nowadays that have a militia to defend themselves. They have the National Guard, which that's federal. So I mean, the states, and there's always this battle between the states and then the federal government, the corporation versus the idea behind the United States of America and the republics, and for the states to retain their sovereignty, and the federal government as a corporation. I mean, shoot, it's just as bad as the military-industrial complex, and plus a corporation is not a person. A corporation is continued on by the ideals of humans that get jobs. And, no human that gets a job has an independent thought, because the earth is promoting everything that any human thinks about they could possibly do. So it's like a big ass experiment that the earth is doing to learn about itself and what it lives in. And, it's been doing this for billions and millions of years. So, I digress. So the paperwork was destroyed. So I filed a claim, and then I sent the claim to the federal court, and it said, hey, essentially you just, flipped off all the rules for all the federal courts because you destroyed the rule book for the, the United States Supreme Court. And then you filed a copyrighted version of my art piece, which has a value that I registered with third-party registering agency that has a value. So I put in a claim, and I sent it to the court. Man, these jokers, they send it to the post office. And then the post office sent me a letter trying to say that I sent it to them. But what I did was I faxed it to the court, and then I faxed the fax copy that I sent to the court to the post office. And I kept specific notes. And what happened was the post office sent me a letter that was compiled in the format of what is called a final denial. And basically, so they were answering as a court as a subsequent agency. And the rules that surround the Form 95 is that if you accuse a federal agency of, a debt, they can point a finger at another agency. So when the Postal Service sent me a letter, I specifically, in my claim, I formatted a claim, because you can, basically create your own, or you can use a form. I formatted the claim, and I didn't put a dollar mark. I only used numbers, specifically, I didn't list a sum certain. If you don't list a sum certain, the claim is not valid. But when the Postal Service sent me a letter based on the claim that they received from the court, they added a dollar symbol. They made it a sum certain. So basically, the post office gave that copyrighted paperwork that is still in the federal court's filing system, it gave it a sum certain value, of which the post office has been siphoning money from the federal government judicial branch, because the paperwork that I sent in, the motion, I requested the paperwork to be inserted into what is called the interest-bearing account for the court system. So basically, there was this thing in the Central District Court where you could request for items of value to be placed in an interest-bearing account within the Central District Court, and you didn't need a court order. But all of a sudden, when I sent my paperwork, 3 motions came out. One for a motion on now you need to request permission to put items in the interest-bearing account. Another order for you can't put individual like identification, like social security numbers and driver's license numbers on paperwork. And then the third is the length of motions. All of a sudden, when I sent in my motion, which included my lawsuit, these 3 magical orders show up in the on the website issued by Chief Judge Virginia Phillips. So the running tally on that deposit was 0.50% interest monthly. So that's $400,005,124.50 at a 0.50% interest rate compounding. That is a debt that the United States Postal Service backed with real money of a certified letter that was returned, endorsed with a banker signature, returned to Wendy Weideman Hudson for deposit. That's a running debt that the United States Postal Service has a claim on the federal court judicial system all the way up to the Supreme Court for a request for either the paperwork to be removed from the docket or a debt for damage to a piece of paperwork that was a consumable and is a consumable good. Now, all of a sudden, coincidentally, after my lawsuit was filed, the Central District Court got moved from their courthouse, and they got a brand new shiny cube on First and Broadway. But the First and Broadway courthouse has no filing. You can't file there. So they lost their filing privileges, and the filing privileges got sent over to the bankruptcy court at Roybal. What a coincidence, right? So now the filings is in the bankruptcy courthouse. So basically, the United States Postal Service has a chit over the United States judicial branch. So, I started sending out these emails. I sent over 10,000 emails to hedge funds, stock market companies, Fortune 500 companies, all the courts of all the 50 states, the federal courts, credit rating agencies, newspaper agencies, explaining hey, can you convince the court to file what I filed? To file in the record what I sent them? And like, hey, look at these weird orders that just came out when I mailed in what I mailed. So I kept that up for maybe about 2 years. And then the statute of limitations for bringing a claim, it got to the point to where, I just went to the Attorney General's office and I was like, hey, they won't let me do another 495 on, because I can't walk into the courthouse. The marshals, wouldn't let me come in the courthouse, and then there's an issue with paperwork when you mail it. So after about 2 years, I was like, this, and every time I would send in a piece of paperwork to pursue what had happened within the legal ramifications of following up on mishandlings of government, the paperwork that I sent in would get altered. And it's kind of like, what does it say about a person that causes the creator of a game to cheat at their own game? I guess that's a success. So anyway, so after a while, I was just like, I said, you know what? I beat yoga. I beat the judicial system on accident, and I'm going to do something else. And the next day, it was 5/23/2018. I went inside my room, and there was this light that was always on outside in the courtyard, and it started getting dimmer and dimmer, and the room, it felt like if darkness is like an independent existence other than darkness created by the shadow of earth, because the sun is shining 24/7 7 days a week, but the only thing darkness is for people here on earth is the shadow of earth as it rotates around the sun. So there's no such thing as a sunrise or a sunset. The shit doesn't rise. It's like when the darkness comes, it's just in the shadow, and then when the light comes, it's not in the shadow. So anyways, so I was in the room, and it felt like darkness was just like creeping up on me like a real existence. I was like so frightened. I tried to run from it, and then all of a sudden it seemed like I was in like a different place. I was in the same place, but something else was communicating. And so began like a 5-year journey of living in the same place but a different place. And only thing that I could rationalize why was the lawsuit, because I started, before I get my hands on it, I started analyzing what was the far-reaching ramifications of one singular court making a movement on the judicial branch, but then it affecting all the things that are property of a particular corporation entity, which is the United States government, and all those living entities that assign their bodies as value to the property of the corporation, and the corporation having identification markers, either blood, skin, fingerprints, pictures of the face, different things to quote unquote attach a type of Masonic or attachment to the government, as giving the corporation, the corporate entity, the ability to cause the body of people to like submit. One thing that the earth has come up with is the signature, and creating a particular type of access to one particular species on the earth. Humans are the only species out of billions of species that impose themselves on all the other species, but at the same time a majority of humans have given corporate existences access to internal mechanisms within their body that respond to certain locks. I would say like signatures, blood, things given voluntarily based off of information taught to humans in school forcefully, yet libraries available for independent research to find out the truth of the matter. It's just this big experiment, in my view, that the earth is commencing on one of its species, aka humans. So 5 years living and journeying, and one thing, like I asked for a companion, and this person's voice showed up. Like I would hear this person's voice as if someone was in the room talking to me, but their body was still alive. And I was baffled, like how I thought spirits were only things that, when the person's body died, then their voice could be traveling around. But the fact that, I experienced something of that manner, it just, brought a new awareness and a new approach of analyzing everything that I had been taught by humans throughout my lifetime before I finished with that paperwork. And there's a lot of other nuances that happen, but I was talking about success. So a lot of people in the past, before this thing happened to me that I just spoke about, a lot of people that I knew would categorize success as being something that other humans could be proud of you socially. On the majority, not like, the minority. There's a minority of people socially where, going to jail, or joining a gang, they're proud. But that's like the minority. I would say the majority is, something that, in a middle class family, your parents, can be proud of, getting them a house, getting a car where they can show off to their friends and before they leave their body, yada, yada, yada. And then, you accumulate things where you maybe have social value and you get honors and accolades and things in the public, and, people hand clapping, and, you feel great before you get old, and then a retirement home, and then you leave your skin suit behind and you leave everything that you accomplished, and during the journey, you tell yourself, "Oh, I'm leaving something behind for the other humans to advance humanity and help a greater cause, and we all can work together and yada yada yada. But nothing is taught in schools by humans to humans that humans are part of a bigger picture of reality existing on the earth with other existences. And humans tell themselves that they are in control of all other existences, yet humans are reliant on all the other existences to sustain themselves. Humans don't eat humans. Humans eat other existences. So how can humans be so superior if they don't eat themselves? If humans were superior, they would be eating human steaks in grocery stores. But humans are 100% reliant on all the other existences, and all the other existences have a monopoly on humans. If all the other existences want to insert some type of a bug or germ, boom, you got the coronavirus. But this whole thing about human superiority is not even true. We're the only species out of billions and billions of species existing on this planet that has a written record. All the other species, they don't keep written records. So what is it so good that we're doing that they're not doing? But yet, and so our grocery stores are filled with all the other existences and life forms on the planet. Seems to me that something has tricked the humans into being codependent on everything else, all the while allowing humans to trick themselves into teaching themselves and giving them the knowledge and the ability to teach each other that they are superior. And then humans come up with human-like representations of an entity that controls everything that the humans find out, like the universe. Oh, God, Jesus, Allah, Buddha. Why they all look like humans? Seems like humans were just giving themselves some sort of role model to train and brainwash other humans to doing all the work for them, while some humans that come up with these ideas because they do a lot of drugs. That's why a lot of these secret societies and they do drugs and go to the other sides and get deals and bring it back, and they think they're doing something, but they're just promoting the ideals and the wants and desires of the earth. It's this big experiment onto how mind fucked the humans could get and mind fucking themselves. That's my perspective, a portion of it, having traveled over like 5,000 miles behind this thing or whatever it is that happened. Because, there's certain parts I'm leaving out, but basically the totality of the value that is my paperwork that is generating interest, I deposited it somewhere in a particular contract. And that happened when I was on what I call the other side. It's hard to explain. But there's certain nuances of human bodily communication that humans do inadvertently that women only notice, men don't notice, and it's like so many other things. But as far as success, so what I obtained was an experience that isn't sold on the open market, and it's a more realer experience of what is sold in religious establishments. And of course, I'm making this video to put it out on the internet. If my I in going on this journey that happened, I stopped communicating with a lot of people that I regularly communicated with because I had a hard time. Nothing prepared me for what I experienced. I wasn't taught by my parents how to exist in that new place. And the people that I would hang out with before, I would see things occurring in their body. When I mean things occurring in their body, okay, so I'm talking to you right now through this video. And while I'm talking, my heart is beating as your heart is beating. Blood is flowing through your different organs. Are you actively thinking about, like, as you think walking down the street, are you actively thinking about beating your heart? No, I'm not either. Something is doing that automatically. Something that is alive, just like I'm talking to you, is beating my heart. So there's things inside the human body that have their own existence, that have their own sentient, that have their own thoughts and processes, just like humans have their thoughts and processes, just like ants, cats, dogs. And it has a way of communicating with other things in other people's bodies as well. And that shit is fucking weird. And when they notice you, that you notice them, they try to gang up on you. And I've had so many instances of where, like, I've been in Beverly Hills, Calabasas. I've been all over the United States. I've been out different countries, chasing behind this thing, trying to figure out what it is. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. Trust me. Like, if I seem to have cut you off as a friend and I wasn't communicating with you, it's because I was in this success zone. And don't worry, I put in a good word for all those that know that, we were tight. And I would say all those that probably could have the possibility of watching this video that fall into that category, like, your voice, know this, that your voice, like my voice emitted from, like, my larynx, your voice is an independent sentient entity, trust me, that has the ability of having its own thoughts and processes, and your body doesn't control that. Like, like, what you think you control, or what I think I control of my body, of my voice, it has, like, a life of its own. And trust me, those that know that they fall into this category, like, I heard your voice and I thought it was you, and I might have called you and might have met up with you and had a conversation, was ask you a bunch of these weird questions, as me trying to figure out if it was you part of, like, because at first I thought it was just a bunch of secret society Illuminati stuff, but I found out them people don't know shit. Yeah, there might be groups and people, they do drugs and they get deals, they get bad deals, they come over, but they don't really have a true grasp because they didn't bring enough meat to the table. Meat being people having identification and having given over essence of themselves to utilize that identification in the possession of the corporation. They are not property, voluntarily giving access, and one who has access to that corporation has legal, legitimate access to the bodies. And there's two ways to get things in this now age world. You can go after it with a predatory mindset. You can hunt something down and kill it, right? Which is the only way that humans eat. No matter what people tell you, a human killing. They still kill the animal. If you want something, you gotta kill it. There is no animal, even plants and what do you call it, beans, you still gotta kill it. There's nothing giving itself up voluntarily to be eaten. And that's the whole premise behind the human construct given to it by the earth, the idea of Emmanuel, Jesus. Something giving itself up voluntarily to be something else's food. Like, oh, okay. Even when I did my deposit, I did it. Why did I do it? Because the superior entity showed up. And I deposited it because I knew that the entity loved me and it will give me back 10%. Because I believed in the story of Jesus. The story given to humans by the earth. Because that's the only way that humans could have came up with the story of Jesus. Like, oh, humans say, I got it from a epiphany, or I got it from a visitation by God. Oh, okay, where's God? Tell me where, how do I get there? Oh, it's the creator of everything. Okay, where is he? It's in the sky. Oh, it's Zeus. I seen it. Oh, you seen it, huh? You take a picture? Oh, I can draw you a picture. You know, that's the whole con that the earth has going on. I wouldn't say a con, but language. The ability of one to convince another to the point that that person will give that other person something for the receipt of receiving the story. Language, you know, an audible tone, you know, a story as currency. You know, there's many different things that the earth has been doing for billions and billions and billions of years. And humans are just one entity existing on the thing that we call the earth. You know, it's not to say that the earth calls itself the earth, you know, but I guess what I'm leaving behind in this with this video is that I'm trying to convince myself that I obtained as much success as having the equivalent of $500 billion and taking care of everyone monetarily that I would like to have taken care of, and all my parents and family members looking at me as some sort of role model and leaving behind some sort of story in a book for another human to get inspired about. Because all that stuff is cool and dandy, taught by humans to other humans, but that shit don't really matter because there's no independence for humans ever. Everything that humans do is for the benefit of the earth. Always has been, always will be. Even me. I'm a byproduct of the earth. I just happen to have had an experience with the earth on a particular level because I had to pay for it. Inadvertently paid for it. So now I have another particular type of opinion about certain things that humans do. And, you know, I digress a little bit, but as far as success, I have a type of glimmer of an expectancy for after I get eaten, quote unquote. You know, go into the ground, become something else's food. And then there's a lot of other things that occurred, like there's this clicking that occurs in my ear when I say things, and it like clicks in agreement, and it has like a certain tonality to where like it has its own voice. And I've been in situations through that 5-year journey where like my stomach growls with like growl in English. Like, what? There's so much shit on this planet that has been going on for billions and billions of years, like artificial intelligence and the slow progress through computer chips and electricity. This shit ain't nothing, man. Ain't nothing new to the earth. It's on the slow backwards progress. It's like finding out time travel and then going back to first grade and then fine-tuning building blocks or some shit like that. That's like everything that humans are working on nowadays that thinks is so innovative. Because don't get it twisted, like the earth gets rid of like civilizations of people after they explore to a certain point in the past, it would seem. But yeah, so far as success, I mean, I'm trying to hype myself up to come to the realization, because I'm not gonna lie, even though I went through what I went through, like sometimes it's kind of hard for me to give value to my experience, because the experience gives a particular value of a next experience after becoming food for worms or whatever. But right now, while I'm still in this body, success is having a lot of money, having, something that someone can look up to, that I grew up with, being able to spoil my friends or see a smile on their face, give one of my friends like $20K, like, hey, and see them light up or pay their bills or pay their mortgage off. That's like success right now that has been taught human to human through the teachings that humans have done, based on what humans have found, based on what the earth teaches, people at the top through their uses of drugs, and then they trickle it down and infuse it in the curriculum and the school systems, and then it kind of takes a mind of its own through creativity, and innovation. It's just the earth sitting back watching things happen. It's kind of like cutting off its finger and watching it wiggle, because we are the earth. And it's interesting how the earth watches itself learn about itself and things exterior to the circle that we live on. Things exterior like what we call the sun. Things exterior like the blackness. Things exterior like the mathematics that possibly occur repetitiously, outside of what we call like the atmosphere. The earth is got a lot of shit going on, watching itself, learning about itself. It's kind of like me doing a deep dive inside of my body, being an independent person inside of my body, but then communicating with my body independently and teaching my body how to do things, but not sharing with my body that I am the body. And it's like a weird dynamic. So value. I guess, okay, well, it's like, okay, would you rather have something? Well, no one can take anything that they acquire here that is taught by humans on how to acquire what is available to acquire. I mean, technically speaking, you don't even take your memories, because your memories exist in your brain. And I've seen people at funerals and their body is still there, but it ain't moving like it used to. That means their brain got left. So the electricity left, but that ain't the brain. But then, are memories electricity, or are memories brain matter or something? What remembers? The muscles or something remember, right? It's not just electricity. So it's a question of, do you even take your memories? Do you even take, your specific view of the world? Or does the germ leave? Because there's billions and trillions of independent organisms living inside of your body. And I'm just the controlling thought. What about all the other thoughts that are going inside of my body by the other living entities that are living inside of my body, like germs, all type of shit? Probably a tapeworm or, something. So, value, accumulating billions and billions of dollars or millions of dollars or cars or houses or a good pussy or a child, who's to say you remember? If you don't remember, then, it all depends on your particular experience. If you never experienced something that opens up your mindset to question what you've been taught to value and cherish, then you kind of just do how I used to do. I valued things only how I was taught to value things. So I didn't know. And by going forward and doing something and putting my all into it, I was fortunate to, I guess you can call it, go to the Wizard of Oz and come back multiple times. So people say, you put something on the internet, it stays on there forever. Take it, put it in the earth, put it in the rocks, computers are made of computer chips, and those are rocks. So